It's spooky month! Okay, maybe that wasn't the greatest idea. That's on me. Hi, I'm Cone, and I like making two-part videos covering my favorite slasher series. But what I don't like is Texas Chainsaw 3D, which has got to be the only movie in existence that I genuinely can't stand. But I'll tear into that movie later, because today, on October 11th, 2024, officially makes the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 50 years old. Without the original, horror movies would not have evolved the same way. In part 1, we went over the original, part 2, Leatherface, Next Generation, and the 2003 remake. If you haven't seen the first part, I'll leave a link in the pinned comment below. In this video, however, we're wrapping up with the beginning, 3D, Leatherface, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'll also be covering the Lost Chop Top spinoff that hopefully is finally being released. Then I'll be finishing off by ranking each timeline. Unfortunately, only one of these movies is actually decent, but we'll see what each installment has to offer. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning is, in all honesty, a half-assed attempt at an origin story. Most people would file this movie along with Leatherface as being the most forgettable installment, but I love this movie. Maybe it's just my nostalgia connection to it, but this movie, although it isn't perfect, I think it's highly underrated. I'm not gonna pretend that it's some unrecognized masterpiece. I mean, there are criticisms about this movie that are completely valid.
You stay put. I'll let you know when I need you.
Seen what you did back there, Hewitt. This doesn't have to be different.
The biggest one being that this is just another excuse to make a chainsaw movie, especially after the success of the remake. When you title your movie as The Beginning, people are expecting to see how the Hewitt family came to be. How did Leatherface become Leatherface? What was his childhood like? Well, we see how he was born. Other than that, we only see glimpses of his childhood through images during the opening credits. Were you wondering how Uncle Monty lost his legs? Or how Sheriff Hoyst lost his teeth? No? Well, too fucking bad, because now you know.
Oh, bullshit. Look at that. Now, Tommy, that's goddamn sloppy. That'll get infected. Even him up. Come on.
We do get to see how Sheriff Hoyt stole the uniform, and we'll get into that later. It's clear that Platinum Dunes only wanted to make another movie where a group of victims stumble upon the sadistic family and get killed off one by one. It's not like this movie could have been a sequel with Hoyt dying at the end and Leatherface losing his arm, so a prequel was the only option. And because it's a prequel, there aren't really any stakes to this movie because you know that all of the family members are going to live and none of the victims will get away. Though this movie only briefly touches upon the origin aspects, I never really looked at this movie as an origin story. I've always seen it as the story of the family's first massacre.
Come on, Tommy. Ain't no different than the slaughterhouse. Meat, bones, bones. Get it done.
In Texas Chainsaw 1 and 2, we hear that Grandpa was forced out of a job at the slaughterhouse.
We was raised in meat. Then after the glory, Atlas went for automation. The air-powered head hammers drove Grandpa crazy seeing things he doesn't like. That was all she wrote. One morning, Grandpa just quit going in. It was a shame.
This movie decides to stick with that. At the very beginning of the movie, the slaughterhouse is being condemned, and Leatherface is the one forced out of a job. Not only that, but that was the town's only source of food, causing everyone to move out.
There's no more jobs, no more money, no more food. It's downright suicidal. And I'm the last bit of law enforcement that's left. Hell, I'm moving to Michigan next week.
But the Hewitts refuse to abandon their home and resort to cannibalism instead.
shit, I just killed the whole fucking sheriff's department.
You could argue that it's strange for them to get right into cannibalism because nobody becomes mad over the course of a single day. However, at the very beginning of the movie, we see a young Luda May digging through a dumpster and eating trash before finding an abandoned baby face. These people clearly weren't right in the head to begin with. I mean, this is how Luda May reacts to Shoit, what the fuck? This is how Luda May reacts to Hoyt saying that they're gonna eat people from now on.
Charlie, say grace.
Mama, I told you, Charlie's dead. It's Hoyt now.
Hoyt was one of the best parts of the remake, and he takes the spotlight, and I am all for it. To have an interesting story, you must have a good villain. As everyone might have figured out, he isn't a real cop. I mean, no shit, he's not a real cop. He blew off the head of the last sheriff in the town, and he stole his identity. He realized that impersonating an officer would be a good way of hunting people for food. It leads people to a false sense of protection.
Kids okay?
Hoyt is just as evil as he was in the remake. There's a scene where he promises to let someone go if he can just do 10 push-ups. But what he didn't tell him is that he's going to be using police brutality while he does it.
Hon! Whoa, that was a really fine push-up there. One. Come on, sweetheart. That was a really fine push-up there, sweetheart. I only have one, that don't count.
I like Leatherface in this one more than I do in the last one. I complained about how his design came off as a little try-hard in terms of horror, but he's back in normal clothes just the way I like him. We found out in the last one that he wears masks to hide his facial disfigurements, which is just generic as hell. I mean, it's nowhere, and I mean nowhere near as interesting as him wearing faces to adopt different personalities. In the remake, it's just big man kills because big man ugly. But to be fair, this version of Leatherface is still angry unga bunga. His whole life he was picked on and bullied because of how he looks. It was barely a topic in the remake, but the beginning focuses on it much more. Throughout the whole movie, people are constantly calling him an animal or...
You raised that retard right. Me and you, we ain't taking this drive right now. You can't have a creature like that around normal folk. That's what I'm saying.
So while wearing human faces to hide his disfigurement is generic, it works in this one only because it's at least elaborated on a bit more. It at least adds to his character.
I like your new face. Come on, Tommy, get up here.
I also like the group of victims in this one because they aren't just lambs to the slaughter, literally. These people are fighters.
Shut your mouth!
Chris and Bailey are traveling across Texas to drop off their boyfriends who have been drafted into the Vietnam War. Dean was drafted. His brother Eric chose to go back to the war. I wonder if they would have met Chop Top. Eric is the kind of person who lives for combat. Dean, however, is a coward who doesn't want to go to war, so he ends up burning his draft card stating that he's not going.
What the hell are you doing? I'm not going, Eric. What do you mean you're not going? I'm not going, Eric.
You think I don't hear you at night, man? In your sleep, wailing from what you've done over there?
How could you want that from me?
This not only sets up character development for Dean later on in the movie, but it also starts conflict between the two brothers. These characters could have easily been nobodies existing only to add to the body count, like the bikers. So, it's nice that these characters have some, character to them, even if we know that they won't survive. On that note, this movie has a really dumb ending. They try to make it seem like Chrissy might actually make it out alive, only to have Leatherface come out of fucking nowhere. And he kills her with a chainsaw from the backseat of a car. Dude, how? How? How did you have any room back there to fucking prep that thing? Not only that, but you don't have the space to start that chainsaw up. So it couldn't have already been on because Chrissy would have heard that thing. And why would he hide back there to begin with? Why would you wait for her to drive off when you could have dragged her out of the car and just executed her on the spot? I swear, this is just as stupid as when Sally and that trucker got out of the other side of the truck instead of driving off. So just to simplify, it's an unnecessary origin story, but as a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, this is hands down at least my second or third favorite movie. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move these two over just a little bit, so that way I could put the beginning right there. I thoroughly enjoy the beginning, because what a lot of these movies going on seem to forget that it's not about Leatherface, it's about the family as a whole. Other than that, this movie arguably is the last good Texas Chainsaw movie that we've gotten. The worst part is that we still have 3 more movies to go. Ugh. Fuck this movie! Texas Chainsaw 3D is essentially just plot hole the movie. You'll see what I mean when I get into it, but this movie has god-awful written all over it, and as if you couldn't already tell by 3D being in the title. Next Generation was dumb and all, but I can at least get high as fuck and laugh at how bad it is. 3D isn't like so good it's bad, it's just bad. It's filled with moronic characters, terrible one-liners.
What the Texas motherfucker?
This movie had 3 writers. One of the writers being the director of Jason Goes to Hell. If you aren't familiar with that movie, that one's awful too. It's no secret that TCM has one too many inconsistent timelines, rivaled only by the Halloween franchise. Texas Chainsaw 3D adds to that problem by being a requel. This movie starts with the recap of the original masterpiece, reminding you of what you should be watching instead. So, you remember Bill Moseley as Chop Top in Texas Chainsaw 2?
You gotta run for that money now, chase that dollar, gotta go fast to catch it.
Well, he comes back as Drayton Sawyer for the opening scene, since Jim Sedow passed away. John Dugan even reprises his role as Grandpa, even though his makeup looks absolutely nothing like the original, which this movie is taking place immediately after. Gunnar Hansen even makes a small cameo as a fucking completely random family member. It opens up immediately where the original ends. Drayton, Grandpa, and Leatherface have to defend the home from a sheriff, and... Wait, who the fuck are the... Where the fuck did they come from? I thought this was a sequel to the first movie. They weren't in the first one. I mean, it's cool seeing a cameo from Leatherface himself, but, like, his role makes no fucking sense. It doesn't matter anyway, because they all get killed off, except for this random retcon baby. We then jump, let me specify, 40 years later, where the baby from the opening is all grown up. And by all grown up, I mean she's only 20 fucking years old. This movie had 3 writers. There's no reason at all this movie couldn't have been set in 1993. You can't even make an argument that it could be set in the 90s because there's a cop walking through Leatherface's house with a fucking iPhone. Speaking of Leatherface, who deep-fried this man's mask? Why is this man Quispy? Heather isn't the only immortal, by the way. Burt Hartman and Sheriff Hooper didn't age at all in the 40-year gap. How hard is it to just cast 2 young men for the opening scene and then cast 2 old men to play their older selves? Did a single person use their brain while making this movie? The filmmakers are just as stupid as the characters I have to endure watching. Heather gets a letter saying that her grandmother died, but she didn't know that this grandma even existed, so naturally, she goes out to Texas with her friends to inherit a mansion left to her, but on the way they pick up a hitchhiker who they later blindly trust to watch over the mansion while they go out to get groceries. To nobody's surprise, this complete random stranger that they just blindly trusted robs them blind, and when they come back, they're just like,
Wow, he played that smooth.
not as smooth as your brain, you fucking retard! There's a part where Trey Songz, who is playing a fictional character, is listening to a Trey Songz song. So, what? Is someone else playing Trey Songz in this universe? Look, the point is, it doesn't make sense. You know what else doesn't make sense? Climbing onto a fucking Ferris wheel to escape a killer. You fucking what the What the fuck is Leatherface doing in a crowded place anyway? The whole point is that he's supposed to be hidden as far away from people as possible, yet he's out in public comparing chainsaw sizes with Jigsaw. This movie had 3 writers. Heather is Leatherface's cousin. This is not a twist. We knew that throughout the entire movie. But Heather didn't know that because her stupid ass didn't read a letter that she was specifically told to read.
Most important thing. It's from Verna. Make sure you read it.
I will.
And don't forget to read Verna's letter.
Within that letter were details and a warning about Leatherface, and if she had just read that when she was told to, all of her moronic friends would still be alive.
Why didn't you warn me? All my friends are dead.
Did you read Verna's letter?
No.
I asked you to, right?
It isn't until the very end when Leatherface sees a birthmark on her boob and then that she tells him,
It's me! It's Heather! It's your cousin! It's me!
"Bitch, you better be thankful you're not in Alabama right now." A redneck and an asswipe from the opening end up beating up Leatherface's ass, and then the movie does a 180 and starts treating the skin-wearing killer as the hero of the story. Heather has second thoughts on running away and decides to save her cousin. Bitch, why? You knew this asswipe for a day, and within that day, he tried to kill you and successfully butchered your idiot friends. You don't have a damn reason to save him, but no, she goes back, fucking grabs his chainsaw to help him out, and she says,
Do your thing, cuz. Do your thing, cuz. Do your thing, cuz.
This movie had 3 writers. And the movie ends with Leatherface killing the mayor while the sheriff watches. And he doesn't do a damn thing about it. He just says,
"Clean this shit up."
and he dips. You are the worst cop on the face of the planet. That is, once again, a skin-wearing cannibalistic serial killer, and you just let him walk free? Why? Because Bert was a bit of an asshole? He was also the fucking mayor, and you just let him die. I hate this version of Leatherface anyway, so just put this fucking old man down for our sake, please. Every kill in this movie sucks. I mean, how the hell do you manage to make a guy getting cut in half bad? Like, it keeps switching from shots of the guy shaking around in pain, and then it switches back to, like, a dummy of his torso, which is completely still. And it looks so fake, and it's the only chainsaw kill in a Texas Chainsaw movie. So when I was watching the making of special features, they said that they were initially going to have Leatherface put a chainsaw through Trey Songz' chest. But instead, they were like, nah, fuck that. Let's have him die in a car crash. How brain dead could you be? You suck at making horror movies. FYI, having constant obnoxious jump scares doesn't automatically make your movie scary. It makes it lazy. There's a fucking rat jump scare. A rat jump scare. Why don't you morons take a note from the movie that you're continuing off of? In that movie, there's only one jump scare and it's used effectively. Jump scares in movies do work, but not if you abuse them like the fucking heroin you were shooting up when you were fucking making this movie. There are very few movies in this world that I genuinely despise with every fiber of my being. That is how much I despise this. I don't think I need to waste anyone's time with this. There you go. Fuck off. This movie came out to theaters, right? It didn't? I mean, so it went to streaming, right? Oh, that's not good. Leatherface, not to be confused with Leatherface, is an origin story, not to be confused with the other origin story. Thankfully, this movie doesn't start a new timeline. However, it doesn't really make sense for it to fit into the timeline, at least in terms of character, especially Leatherface himself. We see Leatherface, Drayton, and Nubbins as kids in this movie, but none of their characteristics match up with how they act in the original. When you're making a prequel, that's problematic. Drayton in this movie is a sadistic psychopath, but in the original, he's just a schizophrenic man who, and I quote, "don't take no pride in killing." Leatherface especially doesn't compare to the original. Look at this group of mentally ill kids. Which one do you think is Leatherface? No, really, this movie spends most of its time having you guess which one will grow up to be the big man himself. Should be easy, right? Yep, that's right. It wasn't the big, mentally stuck behemoth of a man. It was the handsome, charismatic, skinny white boy all along. Isn't that a Shyamalan twist? One thing that has always bothered me about this movie is the fact that Jackson is limping throughout the whole movie. Dude, okay, what does that have to do with anything? Shut up, I'm getting to it. Just shush, shut up. Shut. You might be wondering why that matters. Well, I mean, it doesn't really, it's just a bit of a nitpick, but, well, just let me explain. So, with this timeline, we start with Leatherface, move on to the original, and then we end with 3D. So the original movie ends with Leatherface accidentally falling and chopping up his leg with a chainsaw. And when they were making 3D, Dan Yeager, the guy who played Leatherface in that one, limped throughout the whole movie because of that. So Leatherface limping in 3D makes sense, but Leatherface limping in Leatherface doesn't make too much sense because he hasn't hurt himself yet. So it kind of just feels like they were trying to, like, nod at you that, hey, this guy might be Leatherface because he has a limp, and he has a limp in 3D, too. And Jackson should have never been Leatherface. I'm sorry, but this was a dumb twist. Bud had the near-perfect origin story with the electric shock therapy, his mannerisms, and obviously because of his build. But they thought it would be a good idea to kill him off for a cheap twist. Somehow, they thought that was a good idea. So now, Leatherface's origin is that he was a nice-ish young man who became Leatherface in the event of a single day due to the loss of a friend and a bullet to the face. That's weak, man. That's dumb. This is not Nubbins. This is not Drayton. This sure as hell is not Leatherface, and this is not a Texas Chainsaw movie. What this movie is instead is a gruesome road trip movie that remembers at the last minute that it's like, oh, wait. Aren't we supposed to be a different kind of movie right now? Since, to me, this isn't a Leatherface movie, I don't think it's a bad movie. Wait! This video is sponsored by... To me, this isn't really a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, so I kind of enjoy this as its own thing. I've already explained that this may not be a good Leatherface movie, but that doesn't necessarily make this a bad movie on its own. When this movie first came out, I'll admit I was repulsed by it, but, you know, my love for Leather Daddy compelled me to watch this movie again, and again, and again. And after a while, I let go of the fact that it wasn't the movie I wanted, and I found a new view on it. This movie isn't bad in the way that Next Generation and 3D are bad, because it's still a competently made film. There aren't any stupid one-liners, there's no continuity errors, there's no horrendous writing or acting, there's no Illuminati. There's still a pretty decent story in this movie with decent characters if you just try to forget that, you know, it's supposed to be about Leatherface. Texas Ranger Hal Hartman is a decent enough antagonist. Sometimes I like to think of him as a more serious take on Lefty. He's a vengeful cop looking to get revenge for the loss of his daughter. He's played by Stephen Dorff. He's played by Stephen Dorff, who played the villain in the first Blade movie.
You see them do something wrong? No, I didn't think so. You accosted him? You let him out of the car?
No.
Has anyone here ever seen or heard of a French movie called Inside? Well, if you haven't, then you'd know exactly how graphic that movie is. And I bring it up because the directors of that movie came in to direct this one, and the gore does not disappoint, unlike other movies I've watched recently. There's a part where 3 people hide underneath a dead cow, there's a shooting spree at a diner, someone is forced to bite the curb.
Do something! Do something!
And 2 people have sex with an actual corpse. What the fuck? Okay, so in terms of it being a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie specifically, it would go here. But, like, I enjoy this movie. I'm not going to even try to hide it. Honestly, it's a guilty pleasure for me. It's a massive disappointment for, like, the fan base, but it's not next generation, I'll just put it like that. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm going to move Leatherface over here, and then I'm going to put Leatherface over here. But that's about all my thoughts on this one. If you're heading in to watch this one, I'd recommend just forgetting that it's supposed to be about Leatherface. That way you can at least see the good parts of the movie. Well, we're finally down to one last movie. Time to move on to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Hey, sir? Blumhouse's Halloween requel is actually doing pretty well. Ah, yeah, I saw that. I actually quite enjoyed that movie. Yeah, anyway, we have the rights to, make a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Maybe we could try to cash off of what they're doing. You know what? Let's have Leatherface go up against Gen Z, cancel culture, and gentrification. What? I'm sorry, did we learn nothing from the last time we ignored everything but the original where Leatherface was an old man? There's no reason this movie should have been another requel. This movie had every opportunity to just be its own thing. When it was announced that a Texas Chainsaw movie was in the works with Fede Alvarez attached, you could imagine my excitement. At first, we were getting details that it was going to be about 2 Hispanic sisters traveling across Texas, with one of them being in a wheelchair, just like Franklin. But then news got, really quiet, and we didn't hear anything for quite some time. And then after, a long while, we finally got this really sweet teaser poster, and Call of Duty released a skin. We got tactical Leatherface in Call of Duty before Grand Theft Auto 6. And just look at this poster. There's an Easter egg in the poster. If you zoom in, you can see the silhouette of the original Leatherface. But then we got some plot leaks, and they were bad. Real bad. We heard that it was going to be about influencers who gentrify a Texas town. What? Why? Why would you go with that? That sounds so stupid. And then more details started coming in, and all that I could do was pray that they weren't true. We heard that Leatherface was going to get on a party bus, and everyone on it was going to live stream him. Okay, now I know that's a joke. There's no way they would actually make that. Oh my god, they put it in the trailer. They put that part in the trailer! It was just as bad as I imagined it was going to be too. The way that I had pictured it in my head when I first heard that ended up being exactly how it looked in the trailer. Not to mention, one of the main characters is a school shooting survivor. Huh? The movie tries to be topical, but it just jacks shit and fuck all as far as saying something. And I mean, anything. It's just constantly talking, but it's never actually saying anything. The school shooting survivor ends up using guns at the end of the movie, and I guess it's supposed to signify her getting over her fear? Mass shootings are a very real and unfortunately common issue, especially here in the US of A. The topic should definitely be talked about more, especially through media like film, but in a Texas Chainsaw movie? Dude, make a movie about surviving a mass shooting or something, but using that in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie is a bit distasteful, and you do nothing to provide any insight to the issue. This movie also blatantly copies Halloween 2018. Let's just make a quick list of comparisons, shall we? It's a sequel to the original, ignoring every other movie, alright. A vicious killer comes out of hiding decades after the original. The survivor of the first movie returns as a gun-crazed lunatic for absolutely no reason. Halloween was directed by David Gordon Green. David Blue Garcia? Leatherface in this movie is treated a lot more like Jason Voorhees than he is as Leatherface. He gets shot and just walks it off multiple times. He even takes a chainsaw to the face and drowns. But if Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 has taught us anything, it's that Leatherboy is completely immune to drowning. Michael Myers can take 6 rounds to the chest and walk it off because it was at least established that Michael, for whatever reason, is hard to near impossible to kill. Leatherface is not the manifestation of evil. He's just a guy, and an old guy at that. Well, I mean, he did survive a chainsaw to the stomach and a grenade and you know, maybe I can let this slide. As cringeworthy as this entire movie is, I genuinely love this version of Leatherface. Like, this movie is awful, but Leatherface is the only good redeeming part of this movie, unlike 3D. Leatherface in this is no longer an angry unga bunga like we've seen for multiple installments at this point. He's just a sad boy who just wants these damn kids off his lawn. Leatherface on a party bus, on paper, sounds absolutely stupid, but I was surprised that this scene was genuinely horrifying. This movie gives us an actual massacre. I mean, a huge man with a chainsaw wearing human skin is blocking your only exit, and the said chainsaw is shredding through everyone. When I first saw this scene, my jaw almost hit the floor because they made the scene in such an effectively horrifying way. I also like Leatherface's mask in this. I won't lie, when I first saw it, I hated it. But that's mostly because one day, I got a notification from the TCM subreddit that the mask got leaked through a Ruby's mask. Now, Ruby's makes terrible masks, so I should have known that it wasn't going to do the real mask any justice. This did not look like Leatherface to me, but it grew on me after watching the movie, and since has become one of my favorite masks. Trick or Treat Studios revealed that they're releasing a 2022 mask, and you already know I'm gonna get that shit. Texas Chainsaw Massacre technically isn't the worst one, but still, what were they thinking with making these characters so unlikable?
Look at this guy. Who has such a small dick they need to walk around in public with a fucking gun?
Sure, big gun makes you uncomfortable.
I've seen bigger.
I don't even think this movie should have been a requel. There were 2 things you could have done instead of making it a sequel to the original. You could have made this a sequel to Texas Chainsaw 3D, as much as I hate that movie, where you had a sick and dying Alexandra Daddario instead of this racist-ass old woman.
I've taken care of many boys like you over the years. I don't have a problem with Negroes.
Okay, fuck this.
You watch your mouth, boy.
Or, you could have been a self-contained movie. At first, I thought that the original movie existed as a movie inside of the movie, much like, you know, like Blair Witch 2 or the Town That Dreaded Sundown remake. But that isn't the case because we later see Sally holding a picture of her friends. But that photo itself doesn't make sense because that's the photo that the hitchhiker took and burned in the original. This movie is bad, but at least no one is saying anything stupid like, do your thing, cuz.
Hey, leatherfuck!
Okay, alright, that was pretty bad, but I mean, to look on the bright side, it still wasn't as bad as that line in 3D, right?
Try anything and you're canceled, bro.
Alright, how many writers did this movie have? Sally in this movie sucks, dude. Like, what is she even doing here? She's only in this movie to be a Laurie Strode. I've heard complaints about this not being Sally because it's not played by the original actor who passed away many years ago. Oh god, how the fuck do you pronounce her name? Is it Oren Fiore? What? Here, I'll throw it up on the screen. I like this actress. I think she was... When I saw that she was cast as Sally, I thought that was amazing news. She is in one of my favorite movies of all time, Mandy.
I like to call that the cherry on top.
She doesn't play a big role, but still, seeing her name and face attached as Sally Hardesty, I thought that was great. What I don't think is great is that they just made her a shitty dollar store Laurie Strode. And she shows up in the movie, does a big bozo moment expecting Leatherface, the literal man-child, to remember who she was 50 years after the original. And then she dies. She dies, and then she gets thrown into a big steaming pile of Texas Chainsaw 3D. And even then, how is she still alive? Is she Michael Myers as well? She just took a chainsaw all the way up through the torso and got thrown. There's no way she would even have a single breath left in her. Alright, now I know that I vented a lot about this movie and how stupid it just is, but I know it's gotta be another guilty pleasure. I really enjoy Leatherface in this movie. I enjoy the cinematography. I think the soundtrack the score is very good. It sounds like if you took the original soundtrack from the first movie and you just made it into like rave music. I mean, it probably doesn't sound that appealing when I say it like that, but I'm gonna move Next Gen over here, and then I'm putting Texas Chainsaw Massacre in front of it because it's not as bad as Next Gen. Mr. Alvarez, when I saw your name on this project, I had high hopes. Like, you did great with Evil Dead. You established a great original horror movie, and Alien Romulus looks amazing. I know you didn't direct this movie, but I'm still disappointed. Now, I'm no psychic or anything, but I'm willing to bet my left nut and kidney that you like Chop Top, because I mean, how could you not?
Lick my plate, you dog dick!
But did you know that he was gonna get his own movie? And no, this isn't like some idea that never saw the light of day. This is something that had 2 trailers proving this movie's existence. Before I get into that, let me tell you how Bill Moseley got the role of Chop Top. Bill was originally trying to get the attention of SNL. While trying to do so, he made a little skit called the Texas Chainsaw Manicure. I bet you'll never guess what it's about. Now, the short hasn't officially been released, or at least to my knowledge, but I did stumble upon a little clip from the skit on Instagram. In this skit, Bill plays the role of the hitchhiker.
Hey, that's great, honey. We should celebrate with some head cheese.
Though this didn't get Bill into SNL, it did manage to find its way to Tobe Hooper himself, which he later said that if he ever make another Chainsaw movie, he would include him. And boom, Chop Top was born. Around 1999, Tobe Hooper's son William Hooper wanted to make a small 10-ish minute short continuing off of the end of Texas Chainsaw 2. It would reveal that Chop Top survived the end of the movie and was thrown into a prison. He would be reliving the glory days through an interview, giving us a closer look into the life of Chop Top and the gang. Bill Moseley was good friends with a musician known as Buckethead.
And the dance it goes like this!
who would score the film and even play Leatherface. What was going to be just a fun 10-minute short quickly became into like a 60 to 90-minute film. A website was launched, and we got 2 trailers, and the movie was aimed for a Halloween 2000 release. But Halloween came, no movie. There's a lot of speculation as to why the movie saw the light of day, all the way from legal issues to the passing of the cook himself. 24 years later, and we still have no movie. However, we have uncovered eerie test footage of Bucketface. We've been getting updates on Twitter and Reddit that the movie is potentially getting finished. I don't know the authenticity of these posts, but if they are legit, I can only hope that I'll be able to see all American Massacre in my lifetime. If you're interested in looking into the Lost Texas Chainsaw spinoff, Wang made a video going over the history and discoveries of the film. Not too long ago, a documentary was made about it called In Search of All American Massacre. It's free with ads here on YouTube. I think that the only way this movie is ever going to get finished and released is if enough people voice their interest in the movie. And I'll be standing alongside those people. Texas Chainsaw Massacre? More like Timeline Continuity Massacre. Got 'em. Now that you've seen exactly how scattered the continuity is, you hopefully understand what I mean when I say that this franchise is kind of a pick and choose your own continuity. But we're going to be using this timeline chart posted by the official Texas Chainsaw Massacre Instagram. I'm going to be ranking these from worst to best. Now, I want to clarify that these rankings have nothing to do with the movies themselves, but just the timelines. So, starting with our worst timeline, it's gonna have to be the Legacy timeline for me. There's only 2 movies in this one, and that's only because this movie is piggybacking off of the original. If you make a requel, it's because you want to continue the story off of where the original ended. This movie doesn't do that. But like I said, there's no reason for this movie to be in continuity with the original because it doesn't do anything to be a sequel, and it spends all of its time just being its own thing. So unless more movies continue this story, it's gonna be at the bottom of the barrel for me. Okay, now please keep in mind that this is only ranked by continuity and not the movies. With that being said, the original timeline is gonna be ranked next. None of these movies feel like an actual continuation of the previous movie. I can respect that with TCM2 because Toby specifically wanted to make a different movie, but this is the only movie in this timeline that uses the same characters from the original as well as new characters that are motivated by the last movie. But TCM3 completely ignores the ending of TCM2 and replaces everyone in the family except Grandpa. And don't even get me started on Next Generation, dude. I mean, I still don't even know what this movie is supposed to be. Is it a sequel? Is it a remake? A parody? And it was directed by the guy who wrote the original. Simply because of complete lack of continuity, this one's being ranked pretty low. Alright, the reboot timeline. This one goes above the original timeline only because it at least has its own continuity. Granted, the continuity with the original is terrible, but the continuity between Leatherface and 3D is solid enough. 3D came out and the Carsons were just randomly a part of the movie, even though they were non-existent in the original. But Leatherface came out and explained that Verna raised the Sawyers and married Mr. Carson for his money and legal expertise, just to get Jed out of the nut house. So, at least there's some continuity between these 2 movies. Okay, at the top of this ranking, the remake timeline takes the spotlight. Now, there's only 2 movies in this timeline, but this is the only timeline that doesn't start with the original movie. Everything in these 2 movies, although unnecessarily explained, have more consistency than the entire rest of the franchise. Anyone watching these 2 movies should probably start with the beginning and end with the remake. Otherwise, the beginning may feel a little pointless to you. Anyway, that's my timeline ranking. I'd love to hear how you would rank these in the comments. Hey, does anyone know how to unalive yourself? I really fumbled this one. Let me see. Yeah, no, I think this is it. Fuck. Okay, well, thanks for watching me be an idiot for another 40 plus minutes. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully you all have a good Halloween. Oh, and thanks for the support on my last video. It meant a lot hearing from the people watching my videos. I genuinely want to know what you like or what you don't like, or if you also hate Texas Chainsaw 3D, or if you like that movie. Anyway, you better subscribe because I'll know if you don't. I'm a ghost now. I'm in your closet. Watching. Waiting. Wait, happy spooky month!